Hello and thank you for joining. Let's give it 1 minute and then we will start. Okay, let's start. Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar. Today we shall be discussing the new ISO 27001 requirements and focus specifically on the secure software development lifecycle and vulnerability scanning. My name is Sciberras. I've been working in the IT industry for over 20 years and the focus on InfoSec for the last 12. I've worked on several interesting projects, ranging from being an ISO implementer for an e-learning company, doing freelance penetration testing, and teaching ethical hacking for a number of years. I moved over then to senior roles within the past 7 years, mainly working in the iGaming industry as either a VP of Information Security or as a CISO. And now I am happy to say that I am currently the CISO and VP of InfoSec here at Invicti Security. Today's agenda shall be focused on 3 areas. We shall discuss how the new set of controls are now more in line with the current threat landscape. We shall highlight the changes within the framework and go to the specific controls related to developers. And finally, we shall discuss how vulnerability assessments and vulnerability scanning are so important and integral to the framework itself. But before we dive into the presentation, I would like to quickly introduce who we are. Invicti is a global leader in the web application security since 2005, and we have been set up out of the unification of 2 companies, Nesparker and Acunetics. Our head office is in Austin, Texas. We employ more than 400 employees and have more than 3,600 customers and have secured more than 800,000 applications. We provide web application and API discovery and testing that is accurate, automated, and embedded within the software development lifecycle, and offer 3 types of testing technologies, including SCA, which is the software composition analysis, dynamic application security testing, DAST, interactive application security testing, and of course, all this is automated in the software development lifecycle. We all know that web application breaches are increasing. However, what are the real challenges that we have ahead? There's mounting research to back up what we already know. The number of cyber attacks are increasing year on year, as are the costs suffered by companies and organizations. A comprehensive study of current and historical data notices that at least 44% rise in publicly reported cybersecurity incidents over the past decade, with a typical cost of more than $250,000 per incident that grows up to 52 million for the top 5 incidents. There is 40% of all data breaches that are stemming from attacks on web apps, according to the latest Verizon data breach investigation report. And 96% of web apps have at least 1 vulnerability. In response, of course, organizations know that they must protect themselves using a defense in depth approach and have a robust framework in place that reaches all the way back into their software development best practices and ensure that applications they build are inherently more secure. To that end, ISO standard 27001 and its guidance document 27002 provide an excellent and newly fleshed out framework for doing so. The 2022 update, which is the first real update since 2013, reorganizes 14 information security categories into 4 pillars. We have the people, organizational, technological, and physical pillars. There are now 93 controls in place rather than the 114 which we had in 2013. This is due to the fact that controls have been merged and combined together. All of these are new controls, with some addressing directly the SDLC process. So one may ask, what has really changed within this new framework? In fact, Annex SL didn't change much. However, Annex A did. The main text of ISO standard describes the broad strokes, the goals, and the characteristics of an overarching security management system, while the guidance document, ISO 27002, provides implementation guidance around the processes, around your policies, and around your logical controls for such an organization to achieve a good security posture. The previous edition included a small subset in your SDLC controls. However, the new set of controls, the 2022 version, reorganizes multiple granular controls and specifically focuses on secure development. Of course, such updates were prompted by innovation in both technology and cyber attacks over the past decade. For example, amongst the standards, new requirement is one for defining security responsibilities between a cloud provider and an organization. One which, of course, back in 2013, this had limited applicability. There are obviously other new controls worth mentioning, like, for example, how we should step ahead and make sure that we have knowledge about emerging threats, how we should have proper business continuity plans that actually provides value to the organization, how we should monitor physical premises to prevent unauthorized access, how we should have proper data classification and data retention. And of course, the less data we have, the smaller the attack surface. We should anonymize, mask, and encrypt data to limit exposure of sensitive information. We should build a playbook, for example, with alerts and thresholds to properly monitor systems, and also restrict access to external websites that might compromise data. As discussed earlier, there is now a specific set of controls targeting secure coding. I am mainly referring to controls 8.25, 8.28, and 8.29, for those who are ISO passionate, as I am myself. The controls mention that we need to separate development, test, and production environments. We want to ensure and make sure that we can restrict developer access to operational environments and reduce risks related to unauthorized modifications. We want to use dummy data in tests to minimize the attack surface. We should also not allow testing in production because we want to ensure that we are maintaining high availability. We want to define security requirements in the specification and also in the design phase. And we can do this by using standards such as OWASP Top 10 and NIST. NIST 800-218, for example, is a very good way on how you can have a good software development lifecycle process. We also want to shift left as much as possible. We have to apply secure system architecture and engineering principles by providing requirements in relation to authentication. What we're going to do with session control, how are we going to sanitize data and have proper input validation. And let's not forget encryption standards. We all know that with encryption standards, there are weak ciphers around. We want to make sure that we are disabling. Okay, companies should also perform system and security testing on deployed code. We need to run regression testing, code scanning using tools such as SAST, YAST, and DAST tools, and have penetration testing in place or have a bug bounty program. Should also use project management principles. And this is really important because we need to help project managers in having a good feasibility study, identify the major risks in the projects ahead, and also help them to estimate costs, time, effort, and resources. We want to define secure coding guidelines. Non-functional requirements are extremely important. And these non-functional requirements should follow, in fact, NIST, OWASP, or similar approaches. We need to train our developers. We need to have secure coding techniques, and we need to find and fix vulnerabilities. We want to make sure that they have secure software development lifecycle program in place. We want them to provide secure coding training. We need them to use SCA tools, DAST tools, YAST tools in their CI/CD pipeline. The controls also mention secure repositories and how restricted access to source code is important. We want to make sure that we have policies in place, and these policies are being automated because having manual changes are susceptible to weaknesses. We need to think about secret scanning. How are we going to treat secret scanning? And how are we going to make sure that no secrets are there within our pipelines. Let's not forget about the hardware, the services, and the network configuration, and also providing infrastructure as code and having secure infrastructure as code. Annex A also goes into version control. We want to write good commit changes. We want to make sure commits are also traceable. We want to follow branching best practices and want to consider data encryption in transit and also at rest. There is also a specific control in relation to outsourced development and how we need to ensure that contractual agreements have security clauses in place and also the right to audit. One must also take into account personal data and the application of its legislation for that personal data. But of course, even with the strictest design and coding practices, vulnerabilities still creep into an application. This is why vulnerability scanning throughout your software development lifecycle has been emphasized in multiple places within the standard itself. In addition to the overall SDLC process, there are two controls that directly addresses vulnerability scanning. I am talking about control 8.8, which actually specifies how an organization's exposure to attacks should be assessed and remediated by using vulnerability scanning tools and penetration testing. And control 8.29, where it recommends performing vulnerability scanning and penetration testing throughout your SDLC so that you can verify the security requirements that have been met. For those that need a fresh insight on application security testing, there are four types, starting from the software composition analysis. There is the static application security testing, there is the interactive application security testing, and the dynamic application security testing. DAST performs black box testing on a running application, allowing it to be used both during the deployment and also after the deployment itself. DAST tools can be incorporated in your SDLC and your CI/CD pipelines as well, which are, of course, the backbone within your DevOps teams. And they can scan any type of web application, service, and even APIs. Such tools, notably ours, Invicti's, can also discover web assets in the crawling phase, as well as identifying outdated technology stack components, including runtimes, frameworks, databases, libraries, and web servers. So what are the key takeaways of this webinar? The bottom line is that vulnerabilities cannot be ignored at any point in your software development lifecycle. Indeed, we need to identify and manage all threats that can be daunting. But when faced with the possibility of an attack that could derail development, or worse, cause a breach for customers of deployed software, testing for vulnerabilities both early and often is more than the obvious solution. It's even being specified in the standard itself. Testing tools such as ours, Invicti's, continuously work on all phases in your CI/CD pipeline. Scanning during development to validate code, scanning pre-production systems to validate the environment, and scanning test systems to validate production code. Integration within build tools is fundamentally important, and you get notified automatically with the vulnerability for that code segment and providing remediation techniques so that you can fix the actual problem. A big advantage of Invicti's DAST tools is that we provide automatic confirmation for the majority of important vulnerabilities to provide and prove that there are real issues and there are no false positives. In other words, when a vulnerability is identified, we attempt to safely perform a test attack and retrieve a piece of data as evidence. And that is why, my fellow listeners, we are the AppSec with zero noise. Okay, this is the end of our presentation. Please submit any questions you have via our chat function. And while you do that, I'll pass this on to my colleague for a couple of minutes for a product demonstration focusing on compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, and hi, everyone. My name is Neem D'Amato. I'm a senior solution engineer here at Invicti. And today, I will take a few minutes to show you how Invicti can help you prepare for your compliance needs. To start with, here we have a sample scan for one of our test websites. And from the bottom section, we can easily see all of the identified vulnerabilities organized based on the severity level. Now, we automatically confirm all the direct vulnerabilities such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, command injection, to make sure that we provide accurate and reliable results to our customers, saving you time and your team thousands of hours of manual work. Now, to give an example, if I had to open the Boolean-based SQL injection, this will include a detailed explanation following what is the vulnerability, the parameters used, the impact, the actions to take, required skills for successfully exploiting, remediation steps, internal and also external referencing, classifications, and on the very top, we will also include the request that we have sent and also the response that we have received back from the application. All of this information can be delivered to your developers via an integration into their native developer toolset to help them quickly remediate the found issue. In addition to that, one key feature which I would like to show you that sets Invicti apart from other toolsets is our ability to show the proof of exploit. This will give you direct confirmation how the vulnerability was detected in a safe manner by giving you database name, database user, and also database version as direct confirmation with zero noise. Now, staying on topic with compliance, many customers say that we have one of the best reporting capability for an automated tool. Once the scan has been finalized, we can generate different type of reports that ranges from between standard and compliance that are available in both PDF and HTML. In the report dropdown, you can see all the available reporting, includes OWASP Top 10, SANS Top 25, PCI DSS, HIPAA, ISO, and we also have some additional standard reporting, such as detailed scan report and also executive scan report and much more. If we had to open one of the following scanning reports, let's say, taking into consideration the ISO report, this will include all of the information gathered from the scan according to the ISO compliance. So here, for example, we can see that there were 51 identified vulnerabilities, but from those 51, 32 have been automatically confirmed by Invicti. And then here we also have the breakdown of how these 51 are classified based on the severity level. Now at the bottom, we can also see all the vulnerabilities categorized based on the ISO classification. So for example, if we had to stay with Boolean-based SQL injection, this was part of the 2.5 secure system engineering. Now, if I had to open this, this will also include what is the vulnerability, the impact, the vulnerability itself, the proof of exploit, and also we include the IAST. The IAST here is a gray box scanning technology, which will allow you to provide you the exact line code number where the vulnerability is, together with the stack trace. Now, if we had to go even further, in fact, and go further down, we have the full history when the first ticket was opened and repeatedly detected, and all the changes. And we will also have the remediation steps, as we have seen from the dashboard, which will include actions to take, remediation, successfully exploiting, and also additional references, saving your developers invaluable time when fixing and reporting issues. I hope you found this short demo helpful. As next steps on your AppSec compliance journey, we encourage you to schedule an in-depth demo discussion with one of our experts. Just click on the Request a Demo button on your webinar panel. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Liam. And now let's take a look at the questions. So the first question I have is, are these new requirements also useful or applicable for companies who are not pursuing formal ISO certification? Now, as a CISO, I cannot have a proper defense in depth if I don't have a framework in place. And I always try to use ISO as the framework of choice, whether the company wants to be accredited in ISO or not. And the reason is that ISO provides areas, whether it's physical, technological, from a people perspective, different types of controls to have an effective information security management system and the program in itself. So yes, definitely, I very much believe that having ISO and follow ISO requirements, whether you want to be accredited or not, is very integral and very important within your organization. All right, let's see the second question. What would you say the new standard introduces anything? Sorry, would you say the new standard introduces anything completely new that wasn't already required in the previous ISO version? Definitely, there are 11 new controls now. They're brand new, and we can go through, for example, threat intelligence. The idea of using OSINT tools. There is a complete new set of controls in relation to cloud services. There is configuration management now as well, and how you should now have data leak prevention software. So yes, there are a number of new controls in place that, of course, everything is now updated in relation to the current stack and the current 2022 2023 living. Obviously back then in 2013, controls in relation to cloud service maybe weren't that important, but nowadays, after all these years, ISO has upped their game and is at par with the modern world. Okay, I have another question here. If a company is currently compliant with ISO 27001:2013 for its software development organization, what will need to change in practice to comply with the updated standard? Well, in reality, the old version is applicable till October 2025. And after that, the old ISO version will no longer be valid. One should run a transition gap assessment towards the new 2022 version. And indeed, there are some changes specific to the software development organization, as I have described in the webinar. Essentially, DAST, YAST, all these tools now are being mentioned and are being sort of like a control within your ISO framework. All right. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this webinar and you have found this webinar to be of value. I thank you all and have a good day. Thank you.